I'm Joseph Napier Sr. Today I'm sitting here with Jesse L. Carter Sr., who worked a long and distinguished career as a City of Youngstown firefighter. When he started his career in 1960, he became the first American of African descent to serve in the department. Before serving as a firefighter for 33 years, Jesse worked for the Republic Steel Corporation of Youngstown, Ohio for 13 years, advancing to the rank of foreman. Currently, Jesse serves as a deacon at his church, Third Baptist, and is a member of its deacons board. Also, Jesse serves as the vice president of the Mahoning and Shenango Valley Deacons Association. Jesse, I'm glad to have you here today with me. Okay, in your early life, Jesse, growing up in Youngstown, what was it like? Tell me, for example, what side of town did you grow up in? Do you remember the first street you lived on? Stuff like that. Guide me along.
Okay, yes. As I stated, I was born in 1929. I was born on the east side of Youngstown. I was born on Prospect Street. And my family and I had a brother at that time, and I did not have a sister because she came along later. And another brother, he came along later. We moved from Prospect Street to Rose Street. And in 1934, we moved to the Lower South Side on Franklin Avenue. And we lived there on Franklin Avenue for about 3 more years. And in 1937, we moved to 602 Covington Street on Youngstown's north side, lower north side. Now, prior to that time, I was I understood where we were. And I know at that time my dad was a steel worker, and he was working in the steel mill, steel industry.
Okay.
We did not have a car. We did not have a motor car. Every place we went, we had to catch the bus or the streetcar. At that time, of course, we had one of 2 ways to get around. Either the bus or we walked. Now, going to school, I started to school when I was 6 years old. And that was when we lived on Franklin Avenue. And the school that I started was South Avenue Elementary School. And it was located at the corner of Williamson and South Avenue. That was when I started the school. When we left there, moved to the north side, I continued my elementary education at the Covington Street School.
Oh, yeah.
It was located at the corner of Covington and Madison Avenues. And this is where my education started and began.
Okay, Mr. Carter, now I heard you say your father worked at the mill. He was working at the mill during the 30s?
Yes, he was. He started in the mill in 1927.
Wow.
When he relocated, when he relocated from the state of Georgia.
Yes, sir.
He moved up here to Youngstown, and he started in the mill 1927.
Now, when I'm looking at this date, we want to continue further, but when I look at this date, Mr. Carter, I'm thinking about the stock market crash and how we went into the 30s and then, of course, the early 40s. It wasn't until World War II that we actually came out of the Great Depression with that great economic upward thrusting, if you will, a lot of movement and jobs and opportunities. We were really bustling, if you will. So during the war, he actually worked in the mill during the war effort. And at the beginning, I wanted to say of the Great Depression, which started in 1929. So in 1929, because you said he worked there in 1927. So it's 27 and forward through the 30s, if you will. He was working during the Great Depression days, if you will.
Yes, he was.
Wow.
He was working, but at that time, there were ups and downs in his employment because the mills were up and down as far as the workers were concerned. But my dad was very industrious. We had nothing to fear, in my opinion. We always had a roof over our heads. My wife, not my wife, but my mother was a homemaker.
Wow.
She did not have a job, but my dad had a job, and he also did a little things on the side.
You remember some of those things he used to do, Mr. Carter?
Well, he used to work with a fellow who had a car. He used to work with him. But then later on, after we moved to Covington Street, he got into the wallpapering business.
Oh, yes.
Wallpapering business. Now, I'm going to go back a little bit further. When we left Rose Street and moved to Franklin Avenue, during that time, as you mentioned, that was during the Depression years.
Yes, sir.
And during those Depression years, we did not have everything that we needed, but we had the things in which were necessary.
Yeah, you had a lot of love in that house too, didn't you?
Yeah. At that time also, my grandmother was living with us.
That was common back
That was
then.
my dad's mother.
Yeah, your dad's mother.
That was my grandmother and my dad's mother. And she lived with us until we moved to Covington Street.
Okay.
So therefore,
Wow.
my dad was very industrious. He worked, he provided for us family, and we always had a roof over our head. That means we lived in a house by ourselves, whether we rented, and we rented it.
If I remember you telling me that your dad showed you how to wallpaper, didn't he?
Oh yes, oh definitely, yes, oh yeah. Oh yes.
Well, feel free to continue on now.
Okay.
You're at about the 30s, if you will. You've moved from Rose Street, and then you moved to Franklin, and then you moved to other areas of Covington, made your way up to Covington. Now, when you were living on Covington, you were actually going to Covington School, or at that point in time?
Covington Street.
So that was a grade school, right?
Elementary school, yes.
So you would have been going there from grades, what was it, K through 6?
Yes, K through 6, yes.
Okay. Now, after you left Covington, what school did you go to next, Mr.
I
Carter?
went to Weatherford B. Hayes Junior High School.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I know that building's still standing. Yeah.
The building is still there, yes.
Wow.
Weatherford B. Hayes Junior High School.
Okay, so we call those junior highs in our area, but they're known as intermediate schools as well. And then on to, was it Rand you went on to, Mr. Carter?
Then from there I graduated, and we went to the Rand School.
Oh yeah, I know the history of Rand.
The
Rand, the city's first public high school to be, in fact, it was 45 years. It was the only high school in Youngstown until South High School came online in 1911. South High School would be the city's second high school.
Yes.
Okay, what were your high school years like? We were moved from middle school, now Rutherford B. Hayes, now we were at the Rand High School. What was those years like?
Well, I'll tell you what, I have no complaints. I was able to go through the Rand School. At that time, the students had a choice to make. what kind of
You got to pick your classes?
yeah, well, no, I'm trying to think what they call it. What kind of
Career
thing they wanted, whether it would be mechanical, whether
Right.
it would be
Okay.
I can't think.
You were able to choose going forward what your career
going
choice would
forward,
be,
what my choice
and
would
what
be,
kind
yeah.
of, so they would steer your education
Exactly
towards what
right,
you
yeah.
wanted with your guidance
Now,
counselor?
I lean toward the mechanical end.
Okay. All right.
When
What
I
did you
say the
remember? What you
mechanical
took? What did you
end,
take in
yeah.
school?
I took courses in pattern making.
Okay.
Took a course in furniture making,
Yes.
art. I had art
Wow.
and wood shop. We called it wood shop, not furniture making, but wood shop,
That's what I had
where
too.
you made items of wood. And that started in Hayes Junior High.
Yeah.
Then it continued on in Rand, see.
Yes, sir.
And then when I got to Rand, from my junior to my senior years, I took a course in typing,
Mm-hmm.
and of course I said about art and pattern making.
Right. I have to ask you now, where you were at Rand High School, Mr. Carter, did you participate in the extracurriculars like football or basketball or anything?
No, I did not. No, I did not. I wasn't so athletically inclined.
Well, you guys had a famous, very, very famous football field that was shared by Youngstown State University during the Coach Beatty years, if you will. Rand was the place to be in Youngstown as far as football is concerned,
Yes, it
track
was,
and field, and basketball. There's a long lineage of some very historical things as it applies to Youngstown that happened at Rand, which opened its doors to the public in 1866. So Rand's got, along with their famous historical tapestry that they had on the wall there telling the story, that came a little bit later. Of course, the school was founded, and the namesake, if you will, would be Judge William Rand. Upon his death, he bequeathed money to the Youngstown City School District that a school would be built, a high school would be built, the city's first high school, as we already mentioned, and that anybody of any race, any faith could go there. It would be an open door to all children of the public community, if you will. And you were one of those students, Mr.
And that was the
Carter. What year did you graduate from Rand?
I graduated from the Rand School in January 1948.
Okay, now share with the audience, Mr. Carter, what did you do after you got out of high school? What were some of the things that you pursued and you did?
All right, okay. As you mentioned before, my dad was a wallpaper hanger, and therefore he taught me how to hang wallpaper, and I started that when working with him when I was about 11 or 12 years old.
Yes.
I would go with him and I would paste the paper, he would hang it, and and so on and so forth. All right, now, when I graduated from high school, after about 2 weeks after graduating, I went and got a job at the Republic Steel Corporation.
Oh, wow.
In Youngstown.
So right out of high school into the
Right out of high school, because at that time,
booming.
in 1948, the steel mills were booming somewhat. In other words, you could get a job.
Do you remember, Mr. Carter? Now, you worked for the Republic Steel Corporation, which of course was founded in Youngstown. Later on would have its headquarters in Cleveland, but it started, of course, right here in Youngstown in the late 18th century, to be exact. And Youngstown Republic Steel Corporation was one of the big three. Originally, it was called the Youngstown Iron and Steel Company, and then later on, they would drop the iron, and it would become the Republic Steel Company, if you will, or corporation of Youngstown, Ohio.
I did not know that.
Okay, wow. Mr. Carter, do you remember what some of the other mills were about around that time?
Yes. There was Youngstown Sheet and Tube, and there also was Carnegie.
Okay, Carnegie had a steel plant in our area.
Yeah, they had a steel plant here too, see.
Was that USS Steel? Or is that a
It
different?
became U.S. Steel.
Carnegie became
Yes,
USS Steel.
Exactly
That I
right.
know had plants here in Youngstown,
Yeah,
of
they were
course,
the
in
big-
Gary, Indiana, Chicago,
They
and
were the
different
big
areas.
three here.
Yeah. So we would say the big three was Republic, Youngstown Sheet and Tube.
Yes.
We can't forget them.
No problem.
And then on to Carnegie, which later became USS Steel.
Yes, yes.
Now you have some smaller, or mini mills or smaller steel companies as well.
Yes, yes.
And you had companies like the William J. Pollock Company that made equipment for the steel industry and also the railway industry as well. And was very, very well represented. Matter of fact, if you came down on the Youngstown Viaduct, which we nicknamed the Market Street Bridge, you would come right downtown, and on the left would be the William J. Pollock Company, and to the right would be the Republic of Steel Corporation offices there. They had personnel offices down there. I remember the city up under the bridge, I called it. You had a hospital down there and stuff like that, okay? And then you cascade to the intersection of Front Street at Market Street, right there with the Mahoney County Courthouse, the second courthouse that was built in Youngstown to be exact. That was the second one that was built by the architect team, the Owsleys. So right there. So working at Republic Steel for the Republic Steel Corporation for 13 years. Tell me a little bit about some of the things that you witnessed or experienced while you were working there.
Okay, thank you. When I started in 1948, I went in as a laborer, and I worked there until 1951. 1951, I got married. I married my high school sweetheart.
Yes, sir.
And we got married in June the 2nd, 1951.
So this was like a 11. Wow, this is too soon after you got out of high school then, huh?
Well, 3 years after.
3 years after?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I got out of high school in January of 48, married in June of 51.
Okay.
So that's about 3.5 years,
Okay.
close to somewhere around in there. Now, on June the 2nd, we got married. June the 13th, 1951, I was in Fort Meade, Maryland.
Oh, you got drafted for a Korean
drafted
conflict
in
then.
in the Army.
Wow.
And the
11 days
Korean
after.
conflict started in 1950. And so in 1951, June the 13th, I was in Fort Meade, Maryland, had been inducted into the United States Army.
Jesse, how many years did you have to serve?
I served right around 2 years,
Okay.
okay? And maybe June of 1953, I got separated from
Okay.
the services.
All right.
I went from active duty to
Reserve status?
reserve status. That's what
Okay.
it was. Yeah.
Yeah, they used to phrase it when I was in the Army, inactive reserve.
Yeah.
And they could
Inactive
call you
reserve,
back.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they changed the phraseology on that.
All
What
right.
was your MOS when you were in there,
All
your
right,
job
and
skill?
my MOS, I can't think of the number, but my MOS number was
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
what
God.
did you do? You know, the number's not
52.
important. What did you do?
52-1-46-901.
Wow, that's the number shorted. Later on it became short.
No, that was my ID number.
Oh, that was your social.
My MOS number. The
Uh-huh.
MOS number was the job that you were doing.
Yeah, what were you doing?
Okay, all right. When I came out, I was working in I can't even think. I was working in what is it? Oh God.
It's all right, sir.
Oh, just
Take your
bear
time.
with me.
Yes,
Just
sir.
bear with me. I should have had all of this here lined up. Oh God.
So after you got out of service, you worked a job. Did you go back to the mill?
Well, no. Well, just a minute now.
Go ahead, sir.
In the service, you want to matter what I was.
Oh yeah, what truck driver, cook?
Yeah, no, I was working in
They call
oh God.
Were you infantry?
It was more or less support position.
Oh, what was it? A clerical? Was
No,
it?
wasn't. It was a combination of clerical because I worked in in the office, but it was in the.
We used to call that AG role, the adjutant general.
Yeah, I know it.
Area.
But,
okay, not there.
This was oh God.
It's okay. We can move forward with
Yeah,
it.
it'll come.
So I got an idea, and just shoot it out later when it comes to you.
Yeah,
so you're out of the Army now on reserve status, if you will.
Yeah,
and then
I did not get a discharge now. They did not give me a discharge.
yeah, you definitely.
I got
ain't
a
active
separation
reserve.
of my DD form 214.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows what that is.
You're Department of Defense.
Yeah.
That's your service jacket.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Shows everything you did or wanted to do
okay.
almost when you were in the military.
Now, in the service, after basic training, I went directly to Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then from Japan, I got on TDY. I think I went over to Korea.
Mm-hmm.
Not on the front line.
Oh, okay. You went to Japan initially.
Yeah, not on the front line.
Right, and then you went to Korea, not on the front line, which was a blessing.
Yeah. Okay,
Which was a blessing.
and because my MOS stated. As a matter of fact, I was assigned to the, what do you call it, the teletype room.
Okay.
At that time, they didn't have computers and nothing like
I
that.
had to read that stuff.
But I only was assigned there shortly,
Mm-hmm.
and then I came back to Japan
Okay.
until till the 1953.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I got separated.
They're separated.
See,
Yeah.
because the war
Okay.
was starting to end and
Yeah.
what have you, see.
You know, that was one of the only wars we had in our history
war,
that
yeah.
they called it a conflict.
They called
They
it
didn't want to
conflict.
really call it a war, but
no.
a conflict. Okay.
Right.
And here we are at the 51st parallel to this very, very day. Still watching them.
Right now, they're
watching us.
Watching us, right?
Isn't that
now.
something, Jesse? Being as 2023, all the way from 1958 when you were there. Now we're moving forward through the century, if you will, or the
All right,
90,
now,
the
so-
93
so-
years.
yeah,
so
so-
what did you do when you came out, Jeff?
So when I came home, first thing we did with my wife and I, we started housekeeping.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I say housekeeping, that means my wife was a very focused, industrious lady. All during the time I was in the service, she worked at the Southside Hospital.
Yes. No, it wasn't.
So then-
Youngstown's first hospital, to be exact.
I don't
Southside
know,
Medical.
Very young, Southside. So when we came out, she had saved some of the funds that I sent her,
Mm-hmm.
and we bought a house.
Wow.
We bought a house on Ridge Avenue.
Mm-hmm. Were you able to use your GI loan?
I did not use my GI loan then.
Okay.
I did not use my GI loan then.
Mm-hmm.
And we bought a house on Ridge Avenue. This
I know
was
where
in
it's at.
1953, in about, probably August or June. I got out in June, and we bought the house. We finished it off in August or September of 19, because we had to go in and do some upgrading.
Yes.
So we went in there, wallpaper, we did this, put a thing, blah, blah, blah. But nevertheless, this is what we did.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is where we started our family.
Wow.
Started our family. Now, based on all of that, I did see a lot of things happen
Mm-hmm.
from the time, in Youngstown, because after the war, then things started picking up a little bit, you know what I mean? So, and I went back to my job at Republic Steel.
Okay, good. You picked up where
Now,
you
when I
left
say
off.
my job, I went back to maybe not the job I had, but I went back to working for the corporations.
Right, they were supposed to give you a job back.
Yeah, all right. So then that was very good there. So that's why we were able to start our family, and so on and so forth.
How many kids did you have, Jesse?
Now we had 2 boys.
Okay.
Yeah, 2
Wow.
boys.
One's named after you, right?
Yeah, one's named after me and the other.
Jesse Carter Jr.
Yeah,
Does he have a middle name, Jesse?
yeah, just like mine. Lee.
Both for Lee's.
J.L.
Jesse,
yeah. Jesse
Lee
Lee.
Carter, Senior and
Senior
Junior.
and
Wow.
Junior, right.
Isn't that something? Okay.
All right, so
Well,
then.
well, the years, I want to mark to keep a mark on the date and time.
That's
Now we're looking at the mid to late 50s at this point.
That's exactly
You're
right.
out of the service, you're back home, you're
Back
somewhere
home,
from
I'm
the service, you're working back at the mill, you're starting a family, you're living on Ridge Street, which is on the south side as well, right?
Yeah, it was Lower South Side on Ridge Avenue, yeah.
It's not too far from the hospital, if I
No,
remember.
matter of fact,
Right there.
when I got out, that's the wife for the first years, up until the first child was born, she would walk down to the hospital to the work.
Wow. So here we are.
And I would walk down to over Market Street,
Yes.
down the bridge to my work down at Republic.
You were right there. What stop was that called, or plant number?
Well, it was called Republic Steel Bessemer Plant.
That was the Bessemer plant. Okay.
Bessemer.
I understand.
That was what it was. They not only they made steel. They made steel from iron to steel, and they had rolling mills down there. They had a pipe mill down there.
Wow.
They had mills down there that made shapes
Yes.
for various companies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
They made
stuff they
shapes
contracted with the company.
and that's what they did down there at the Republic.
Do you remember how many plants Republic had, Jesse?
Oh, I really.
It's a lot. There were numerous, weren't they?
Yeah,
They were all over the valley.
there was some down at
Literally.
down in Campbell.
Yeah, he had
Went down
Campbell.
toward Campbell, Stop 5.
Oh, that was Stop 5.
Yeah, that was Stop
That
5.
ran, if I remember as a kid growing up in Youngstown,
Yeah.
that was sandwiched in between Wilson Avenue and Poland Avenue.
Exactly.
You had to go across, then it was called, what, the Center Street Bridge, right,
Center
Jesse?
Street Bridge. You go down the steps, down, yeah.
Wow.
And also you could reach it from there. You had another entry off of Poland Avenue,
Yes.
beyond Center Street.
There you go.
And you went down.
Well, you had to go down. It was subterranean.
Yeah. Okay.
Made a lot of noise, I remember as a
Everything
kid.
was down there close to the river. On the
Did they have a designated parking area for people that drove cars?
Oh,
Or they had to
yes.
park
Oh,
up
yeah.
top
Oh, yes.
and then
Oh,
go
yeah.
down. Okay, they were parking up top, right?
Yeah, they're down on Wilson Avenue. Not Wilson, but Poland Avenue. They had a parking lot. As you go down Poland Avenue up to the right, then they walk down to the bridge and go down.
I remember going over that bridge at shift change
Yeah, yeah.
and
it's
seeing
changed,
the guys march out with their lunch boxes
Exactly right.
and then headed
exactly
towards
right.
their cars. But you know what, if I remember right, on Poland Avenue in that day, and even on Wilson Avenue, they had a lot of businesses there, like the Castle, the White
Yes,
Castle
I know,
House,
yeah.
and a lot of other
Rest-
places there to relieve you of
restaurants.
your funds before you got home.
Restaurants and beer gardens.
Yeah, they were wanted to relieve you of your funds before you got home.
You better believe it before
So
you
yeah,
got
it was
home.
bustling. It really was bustling.
you better
Me
believe
being a child of the '60s, I remember that. In '62,
yeah.
I came along in this world, but I remember how hustle and bustle. Now, of all the stops, I remember Stop 5 the profound
Yes,
because it had a
yeah.
smell to it. It had a sound about it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it had a look going on. The guys
You
were
better
pouring
believe
up out there by the hundreds, you know, like they were emerging from the gallows. They were coming up topside to get back home or get to their cars. You had a lot of enterprising people back then. If I know a story, a Youngstown story, Miss Swables would walk down there during shift change and she would sell her loaves of rye bread. That was
better
a
believe
lot of people hustled back then, and that was one of the hustles. And then, of course, Swable's Bakery would be birthed from Mrs. Dora Swables,
you
who
better
would
believe
sell
it,
that
yes.
bread and other enterprising people back then. So here it is, we're the late 60s, or late 50s rather, and we're headed towards the 60s.
Yes, okay.
Something special happened in 1960. Tell me about what happened in 1960. Well, how did your life change in
All
1960?
right, now, leading up to 1960, I'm still working in the steel mill.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, so then I wanted to get a promotion from one job to another. And so there was one position, it was called steel maker, steel blower. Okay, now, in order to get into that line of progression, you had to start at one position.
Yes, sir.
At one position. So now at that time, African Americans were not in some of the high production positions.
True, true.
And this is in the not in supervision now. This is in the labor area.
They had you guys doing the grunt work. I heard.
It. So
and to be a crane operator or something like that was. It was kind of hard to get to those jobs.
But it'll be. So anyway, myself and some of the fellows who worked with the union said, we're going to try to get you into this position where you go, and if you're successful, you can go up to be a blower. And so we outlined a place, not a place, but a plan in order to do that. To make a long story short, we did it.
Wow.
And I got that position. I got that position.
Good.
As a weighman. They called it a weighman. All right? Now that was the first step in the line of progression to go to the position of blower, where you blowed and you made the steel. All right? So then, this is what was done. So I got that position, and I worked in that position. All right? Now, come 1958. I'm still working in that position, 1958. And at that time, there was a procedure in the country, and it was called what's the name of it? Whereas African Americans was given an opportunity to advance themselves.
Okay.
To advance themselves.
Good.
In supervisory positions.
All right.
And at that time, in our department, which was the Republic Steel Bessemer converting mill, because we converted iron into steel. That's what we blew the steel. One of the fellows was promoted, or at least hired, or at least he was given the position as a supervisor, but an hourly rated or hourly paid supervisor.
Yeah,
so he went
salary,
into
supervision.
You know what I mean? Okay, so they asked me if I would want to do that.
Yeah, I would say.
So after some conversation and some talking about it, I said yes.
Oh, I understand it, because you had some foremen that were union, if you will, and then you had others who were salaried.
Yeah, right. Most of the black foremen was union.
Okay.
Okay. At least the ones that I knew.
Right on.
Now there were some that were promoted to supervisory personnel later after I left the mill. See?
Yes, sir.
All right, but anyway, so then I said yes, and so they bestowed upon me that position.
Yes, sir.
And 1958, 58, or maybe 1950. I can't recall the year. But I only worked in that position maybe about a year, no more than 2 years. Okay, so then 1959 came. And if you read the history, we had a large steel strike here in 1959.
You remember what it was called? Did they have a nickname?
Well, it was a steel strike. The whole steel industry shut down. I don't know whether it was countrywide, or I know it was here in Youngstown. And during the time the mills were shut down, we were, our hourly rated supervisor, we still got our compensation or pay, but we had to go to a session, school sessions or training sessions. And that went on until late November of 1959 when the steel strike ended. And we went back into the mills. And this is where 1960 come in. Now prior to that, I had taken the examination for the Youngstown Fire Department.
Yes, sir.
And for whatever reason, my name come up, whereas I could, the appointing authority could reach my name. Now, I can give you an overview as to how that came about, if you want.
Well, no, we're going to march forward. Now,
Yeah,
it's very important. It's very important that in 1960,
Yeah.
you did the test and submitted it more than once.
Oh,
How many times did you take the exam?
I had taken that exam for the fire department maybe about 2-3 times. or
Okay.
something.
Now here it is. After
that-
the third time, you.
Yeah, that is after I got out of the service. And I took it 1 or 2 years later on. You know what I mean? Oh yeah. I had
Yeah.
taken that exam about maybe 3 times.
Right. You're very persistent.
Third time was the charm.
There you go.
All right,
And I
so-
remember you told me you worked with Mayor Franco back then.
Yeah, okay, I can, well,
go ahead.
here was the situation there. In 1959, Mayor, a fellow by the name of Frank R. Franco ran for the office of mayor in the primary in 59. And fast forwarding, he was successful in getting the nomination from the Democratic nominee of the Democratic Party.
Yes.
So he was put on the ballot in November of 1959, and then at the general election, he won the mayorship of Youngstown. And he started his tour of duty in 1960. In 1960. Now, leading up to that, he had gotten support from the black community. And he had said that if he could reach somebody on the eligibility list of firefighter, and an African American on the list of firefighter, he would appoint him. And this is what he did. He lived up to his commitment. Now,
Well, thank
I
God.
did not get appointed to the department until June of 1960.
Okay, you came on in June. Okay.
In June of 1960.
And what was the number of your firehouse? Where did you work at, Jesse?
Well, I started my work down at #1 fire station. And that's where I spent most of my years at #1 fire station.
Yeah, for our viewers, that would be the main fire
Main
station.
fire station.
Fire station #1, located
here,
right downtown,
Right.
opposite the Firefighters Memorial Bridge, which is painted
Yes,
red,
yes,
by the
yes.
way. And the Firefighters Memorial there is to the left.
The building is
Still
there
there.
right now, and
Wow.
it was between Belmont Avenue and Fifth Avenue on West Federal Street.
Yes, sir.
All
How many years did you spend there, Jesse, before
Okay.
you retired?
Now, I spent a total of actually 33. I got credit for 33 years.
Yes,
but I
sir.
actually spent about 31 and almost 32 because I bought some service
Yes,
time.
that's common. All right.
Yeah,
So you served out there.
Yeah.
Now give me a little bit now. You left the 50s. Now here it is, the 60s. Of course,
Okay.
you're rolling into the job
Yeah,
as
all
the
right.
city's first African American firefighter.
Yeah, okay.
But what are some of what was Youngstown like back at, let's say, the beginning of the decade of the 60s? What are some of the things, if you was to
Okay.
reminisce about Youngstown, what was going on in 1960?
Okay, all right. As I recall, there was some progress in many areas in Youngstown. All right. There was progress in the schools. Well, when I say progress, I think at that time we must have had maybe about six different high schools.
Yes. That's correct.
I remember when they made North a high school. At one time it was a junior high, I think, or something, but they made North.
Because I remember
High
before
school.
North became that, it was Thornhill, wasn't it?
No, it
Was it Thornhill or Science Hill?
Science Hill.
I used to get the two mixed up all the
Yeah, I know
time.
what you mean, Science.
So, do you understand why now that school, North High School,
Yeah.
was located on the east side of Youngstown?
Yeah.
Do you know why that was that way?
Well, I really do not know. I do know what they're thinking of the Board of Education.
Right. Okay.
Because you had a East High, but you see, out there where North was, that was a community.
Yes.
As years ago by,
Oh yeah, the sharing line,
and
right?
it had a name because of the vast area and the number of African American people that lived there. Now, how did they get the Sharon Line name? Is because going back into the 30s, going
Yes,
back
sir.
into the 30s, there was a rail car that went from downtown.
It was one of the streetcars, right?
Yeah, it was streetcar. I'm sorry.
Yeah, by the Youngstown Streetcar Railway
Yeah,
Company.
at that time, Youngstown had streetcar.
So they called that the line. It was it called the sharing line, Jeff?
It was called the Sharon Line.
Yes.
SHARON.
Yes, sir.
But then the area people started to say this is Sharon Line. SHARON.
They ran it together, yeah.
SHA.
Yeah, they
Sharing
well,
line,
we always
they-
flip it. Yeah,
you
we
know,
always flipping names.
We blacks have a.
So if I remember,
blacks
Jesse,
have a
tell me if
time
I'm
there.
wrong. If I remember, didn't that streetcar run from literally from downtown where it originated
Yeah.
up to the city's east side, far east side there, what we call affectionately the sharing line?
Yeah.
But the sharing line, as we know, we're discussing now, was named after that line, that rail,
Yeah, it went all the way to
Sharon, Pennsylvania. didn't it?
Yeah.
Yes,
that's where
sir.
it went, see. And at that time, you didn't have street names. You had stop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, so
And that's
until
how-
they got out of the what you call the Youngstown.
I can imagine if you took the Sharon line, let's say into Sharon, Pennsylvania, which are our brothers to our east, the western Pennsylvania, if you
Yeah.
will, that if you missed that last streetcar coming back, you were stuck like Chuck, weren't you?
Well, yes and no.
Oh, okay. Go
I
ahead,
will
tell
say
me.
I will say this. It was Youngstown downtown was bustling. You could see at that time the mills were bustling.
Everything. Was
Everything
awesome.
was, and the bus and the street cars are running. You could get a car every 15 minutes. It was just that big.
The timing of it too.
It was,
yeah.
Downtown was like
They had a real
all
big
the
network.
time.
A big network,
A
didn't it?
nice network, yes. My dad, he never owned a vehicle, never owned a car.
Really?
He never owned a car.
Wow.
He would always went to work on the bus, streetcar or the bus.
There you go.
And he would walk down from Covington Street, 602 Covington Street, down to Westlake Crossing. Catch the bus, ride down to the square, and pick up a bus to going to. He worked for Sheeton Tube down in Strutters, Ohio.
Okay. Yes.
And he would catch that bus and they would take him down Wilson Avenue,
Yes.
down to downtown Strutters. And that's where he would go into the mill and do his work. Sheeton Tube had a wire making division down there, see. And that's where he worked at, see.
Okay, I remember. I heard you say Westlake Crossing there.
Yeah.
Was Westlake Crossing where Rain Avenue met Covington?
Yeah.
Is that about right there? They had a train.
Right there.
I remember.
Yeah, right there was a crossing. Right where West ran.
Oh yeah, indeed. You had Crescent
West
Street
Federal
too.
Cross.
Yes, yeah, West
And the
Federal.
tracks came through.
Yes.
And Covington Street came right down in the middle.
Terminated there, yeah.
Right
I
there,
remember
see.
that. Now you remember, now Jesse, I gotta mention this as we're talking about 9 decades, if you will, and through the eyes of yourself. You saw cable cars, Then you saw buses become electrified.
Yes.
And then from electrified buses, do you witness buses that can drive anywhere? No, they weren't tethered to electrical lines.
You're right.
To present day, the WRTA as we know it of today, if you will.
Right.
Wow, you witnessed all that going on.
I'll tell you something else I witnessed too.
Go ahead.
At one time, we had 4 railways that came through Youngstown.
Yes. We were talking about that the other week.
Yeah.
Could you name them, Jesse? We'll work them out together. What were they?
Yes. One was the Erie.
Literally, it was on Erie Street, the Erie Terminal.
No.
Was it on? No, not Erie Street.
No, it was down.
No, the name Erie Street crosses my mind because I grew up on the south side.
Erie Terminal.
Terminal.
Was down on Commerce Street.
There you go. It was on Commerce Street.
Commerce
Jesse.
Street.
See, we're going to work this out together, Jesse.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, what's the second one?
The second was
Was the Pennsylvania?
Was
Can
the
you speak up
Pennsylvania.
here? Okay.
The Pennsylvania.
And where was that at, Jesse?
That
for
was
the viewers?
located right there at the corner of Mahoning Avenue, where it ran into West Federal Street.
Okay.
And yeah, Mahoning. See, when you came over the Mahoning Bridge, right there, right where the fire station is.
Yes.
Right where that memorial was.
Right on.
That is where the Pennsylvania station was.
Oh, okay. Because somebody told me, because I'm thinking about the New York too. Was the New York another station?
No. I'll get to the New York.
Okay, what
Central,
the New York?
yeah.
Okay.
All right.
What was the one that was on the east side of Wilson Avenue in
All
Himrod?
right, I'll get to it.
Go ahead, Jesse.
Yeah, I'll get to it. But this is the Pennsylvania.
Okay.
That was the Pennsylvania station. You go down there, you go down the steps, and you get on the train, and you can.
Oh, that was the former Greyhound bus station.
Yeah.
That served during the 70s and 80s.
Yeah. Okay.
You had to go on the backside and walk down steps to the tracks.
That's right. Yeah. That's
Okay.
It. All right.
Yeah.
Now, that was the Pennsylvania.
Yes.
And the B&O was after you get over the Mahoning Bridge and turn to your right.
Yeah, right there at the Mahoney Commons area, they call it.
And you have to go up steps to get on it.
It was a second story, platform. It was elevated to 2 stories.
That was
you know a
the
story
B&O.
behind that, Jesse?
What's that?
After the flood in 1915,
Okay.
they elevated the tracks at the B&O station.
Yeah, that's probably.
They used to be lower, but after the flood,
Yeah,
they actually
had to
elevated
raise
the
them up,
tracks
yeah.
to the 2nd floor.
Yeah,
so now you had to go on to the 2nd floor to catch the train.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so you got the B&O, which stands for the Baltimore and Ohio.
Yeah.
Okay, that was the next one, Jess. I'm sorry.
Okay, you had the B&O, the Pennsylvania. All right. B&O, Pennsylvania. Erie.
Yeah.
Now the Erie, where the Erie station was that on Commerce Street.
Yeah, we talked about that one. We got that one.
Yeah.
And the
Commerce
4th one would be New York, I'm thinking.
The New York Central.
Okay, where was that at, Jesse?
All right. The New York Central station was located at the corner of Himrod and Wilson Avenue.
Right. There's some reminiscences of that station. Part of it still standing.
Yeah,
To this day, they didn't tear it all
they
down.
didn't tear it all down, but it's
So it was right there at that
it's
intersection.
the wall.
Because you had Wilson, Penn Avenue, or
Yeah.
Penn Avenue came off the side, Himrod Avenue,
Yeah,
and of course Wilson,
Yeah,
and then
see.
the beginnings of East Federal, if you will. Himrod transversed into East Federal.
Yeah, exactly right. See, in other words, the bridge, I don't know what you call that bridge. What is the Himrod Bridge?
There was a bridge that ran off to the side, and that was called the Crescent Street Bridge.
Well, yeah, that
No,
went,
Cedar Street Bridge.
Cedar Street.
Cedar Street.
See, that went
There
over
we
to
go.
Cedar Street to the lower
To
south.
Poland
side.
Avenue. It
Over
went
the
down.
tracks.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right on.
Yeah, but that New York Central station. Now the tracks for the New York Central station. See now, all of these here stations had separate tracks, excepting the Erie and the New York Central. They all came down the same parallel. But the New York Central station tracks, see they came. See the New York Central tracks came over Westlake
Crossing there.
crossing on the same track.
Okay.
But then when they got past there, Then their tracks separated.
There you go.
And they went down. The Erie went on one track. The New York Central went on the other track to its station.
Yes.
You see what I mean?
Yes.
But they were located side by side. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
I remember the Erie very profoundly because it was still running when I went to high school.
Yeah.
It would carve down Commerce Street and go up underneath the bridge there, where Strauss's parking deck was, and it would continue on across, if you will. That whole area has been derailed now. They took all those relics down. It's hard to even tell that there was in some areas.
I don't know whether whether there's ever a train coming through West Lake, coming through
Not anymore.
West Lake Crossing or not. I don't think it is. I don't believe
Okay.
it.
All right.
Only one we had was the B&O.
Right.
And
I think that's the last surviving. That's the last one standing, if you will. The building is still there.
Yeah.
They use it as an entertainment center, do weddings and parties.
I don't think we have a train
No,
station
not anymore.
that
No, there's
comes
no
through
train
Youngstown.
traffic in Youngstown anymore.
No train traffic.
So you got to go Pittsburgh or Baltimore. You got to go to
There may
bigger
be
cities.
some that carry products through or something. I don't know.
Yeah, they have some freight because the
Freight,
cars
yeah,
run
yeah,
on the
yeah,
B&O
freight,
line. It
yeah,
used to
yeah.
be because they have
But
an archway
no
here,
passenger,
a
no
trestle.
passenger,
There's
yeah.
a trestle
But no
because I've seen
passenger
those cars
trains,
going.
I
No
don't believe.
passenger. No.
All right, but so now that all happened. That happened. That went by the wayside between I would say between the 80s up and through now, because I think the last train that came through here was during the 80s. I think, I'm not sure now.
Yeah, Amtrak.
Whatever.
They
it was.
renovated B&O, extensively renovated it and restored passenger
yeah,
traffic.
I
The
can't-
mid 80s until the early 90s. Matter of
Yeah,
fact,
but then after
the
that,
second Bush, George Bush,
Yeah.
the son rolled through on Amtrak as a campaign stop.
There you go. See?
So it was shortly after then.
yeah.
It
they
wasn't
started
really
going-
the passenger traffic or travel
they started
ended.
going down
But they
here.
were always big with freight,
Down-
like you said.
Now freight is a big.
Always big on
biggest
freight.
one, Yeah.
So, okay, Jesse, we've left the 20s, the decade of the 20s. Of course, you were born in 1929, you told me, or 8 rather.
1929.
1929, the same year the stock market crashed.
Yeah.
Then we came into the 30s,
Yeah.
where you were in middle school about then. You witnessed things going on there in the mill, and with your dad being laid off and strikes along the way. Then we transversed to the 40s. And of course, the 40s of 1941, December 7th to be exact, the beginning of Pearl Harbor. Steel mill production gets ramped up where they're running 24/7 around the whole valley.
Yep.
And after the war, post-World War II in 1945, we returned back home to our families, a lot of us, and where we made steel for the auto industry, refrigerator making, washing machine making, everything. We were the world's supermarket, if you will, as it applied to steel.
Yes.
We were building skyscrapers and things in New York City, Pennsylvania, all the big cities got steel from Youngstown.
Yeah.
Then also as we moved beyond the 40s, we enjoyed the greatest standard of living in the country at the time because, like I said, we were manufacturing items for the whole world.
Amen.
Because Europe had been torn apart during the war and we were furnishing the rebuilding efforts, if you will. So cascading to the 40s and into the 50s with the Korean conflict, which you served
Yes.
during the Korean conflict for a few, almost 3 years, and then from there back to Youngstown, back into the mill production work, and then off into being a firefighter in the 60s. Now we're coming up into the 70s. I have to ask you, Jesse, what are some of the things you remember from the era, the decade of the 70s?
Okay. All right. Now, once I got into the Department of Fire in the 60s, then the 70s kind of opened up a little bit of a, what you might say, I would say a new vision, not a vision, but a new understanding of my position, my life, because I was being on the Youngstown Fire Department, I was able to see the another side of the city of Youngstown. And that is from the perspective of the administration of the city, which would use a term getting into the political end of how the city was run from a political standpoint.
Yes, sir.
I got to understand certain positions in the city, council persons, and the jobs that the city was, the jobs that the city was in charge of, street department,
Yes.
things like that, because I was able to meet and see individuals who was over those departments.
Who was the mayor that most comes to mind that was the mayor during the 70s? Who's that mayor?
All right. First of all, oh God, that was.
Because I remember
mayor.
Jack C. Hunter, and then George Vukovich.
Yes.
I remember the Vukovich administration.
Yeah, now Jack C. Hunter. Jack C. Hunter was the one that I remember most vividly. Because at the time I was on the fire department, I was driving the rescue squad. Okay? Jack C. Hunter became the mayor. He was a Republican. All right, he appointed a captain by the name of George Panel to be his fire chief. And due to understanding and talking with various ones and stuff like that, I became George Panel's secretary.
Okay.
In his office, working in the office.
Yes, sir.
And that was in 1970. 1970. Yeah, 1970. Let's see now, wait a minute. Yeah, 1970.
So working as his assistant or the secretary there under the Panel administration, what are some of the things you witnessed during your tenure as a secretary with the chiefs?
Well, when I say, oh boy, I got a clear understanding of how the interaction of the Youngstown Fire Department worked, because I was there. I understood the promotional processes. I understood the operation of the fire stations, the what you call the district fire stations. I understood the progression of administration in that the fire department, like the police department, and I'll use this term, they were sort of military operationally operated. When I say militarily operated, because you had levels of command. Like in the Army, you have levels of command. In the fire department, you got levels of command. Police department, you got levels of command. Even though there were the politics was over and above both of them, you still had to operate because you were a servant of the people.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And subsequently, being a servant of the people, they were the ones that were sustaining you. Now, when I say sustaining you, paying your salary. So you had to work for them.
So you got the 70s. Do you remember now? Now we know you were serving in capacity as a working for the Youngstown Fire Department.
Yeah.
But during the decades of the 70s, did you? Now you had a social life too. You went to church as well. Are there things that you've seen going on in Youngstown, separate from your job here? I'm talking. That was going on in the decades. What was Youngstown famous for in the 70s? What was going on in the neighborhood, so to speak?
Let me tell you like this. Youngstown had a reputation, a national reputation.
Yes, sir.
Of being a haven for gangsters.
Yes, sir. I heard that.
All right, now let's look at it and be honest. We had some gangsters here that were you know, I mean, they would kill up each other.
Yeah, they were notorious.
But they were gangsters. You know what I mean? And it was almost like something that was accepted. I remember when I first got on the Youngstown Fire Department, I was working the ambulance. I was on the ambulance. And we had to go and I answer a call where a gangster got killed along with his son, young son.
I remember
Young
that.
son, I can't recall his name now.
Capula? Was it Frank Capula? I'm trying to
But
think, because
anyway.
it was his two boys were in the car.
Yeah,
They had
one,
rigged it for explosion.
that's right. or
One of
whatever
the
it
kids
was,
got
yeah.
killed and the other one got badly maimed.
Yeah, you're right, yeah.
Okay.
And, then you had the Naples, this and that.
I think
There
that
was
was
so
north
much
side.
connections, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of,
But Youngstown was sort of like a stopping place
yes.
for the gangster element.
Yeah.
That
Well,
went
you had
from
some families here.
Cleveland,
Yeah, had families. There you go.
And we had the Cleveland to Pittsburgh.
Detroit, Chicago,
Yeah,
New York faction.
because
Yeah.
out here, right here on the, going out east, going toward Pennsylvania. The name of that place, okay.
Oh, the Jungle Inn.
Jungle Inn.
Thinking it was a hangout.
That was a
haven.
hangout, a stopover for various.
I remember hearing that.
from-
It even had a machine gun turret at the top of the roof line, if you will.
Machine
Because
gun
they were scared they were going to get hit. Because they kept money there. They kept a lot of money there.
Yeah.
So they protected their joint. if
That's the
you
way
will.
it was then. Now,
Wow.
aside from that,
What was going on in the black community, so Jesse?
Now,
I mean,
in
what was
the
going on
black-
in your neighborhood?
in the black community,
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, when things happen,
Mm-hmm.
and they happen gradually, sometimes you don't put much emphasis on them.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing you know, they become commonplace.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They become commonplace. We
Yeah,
had
fast.
several churches rebuilt.
Yeah.
Third Baptist
Wow.
was rebuilt in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
New Bethel was rebuilt.
Mm-hmm. St. Andrews.
St. Andrews
Yeah,
was
Amy.
rebuilt.
Mm-hmm. A lot of growth.
Your church on
Elizabeth Missionary
Elizabeth
Baptist.
was rebuilt.
Yeah, it was a lot of growth in the 70s. Do you think?
Tabernacle expanded.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Let's see. Also, during the not the 70s,
Mm-hmm.
but during the 60s, this here a Methodist church out on the east side, right up from Blacks, the funeral home.
Uh-huh. Sits at the back.
Yeah, they rebuilt around the same time that Third Baptist rebuilt.
Is that because of the influence of influction, I should say, of African Americans into the communities?
Well, yes, or at least if it wasn't influx, because
Some of them were relocated.
yeah, some
Literally
of
had to
them
be relocated.
But what has happened with the African American after about 1960, 1970,
Mm-hmm.
the population of the African Americans started
Dwindling a
going
little
down.
bit. Yeah.
One reason is because the youngsters, there was no jobs here for them. And then as the older people died off
Mm-hmm. That too.
and nobody came in,
Mm-hmm. To replace those numbers.
you
Yeah.
see, so the whatchamacallit started dripping.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but then in addition to that,
Mm-hmm.
the white population started drifting away.
Yeah, they were moving out towards the suburbs and
That's
at that
it.
time.
And you had some blacks that started to follow them.
Yeah.
So therefore, I would say, starting with the 80s, I would say that you could actually see it in the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
that the population of this whole city was
Yeah,
starting
gone
to-
from at its height in 1930 census, will put Youngstown about 170,000.
There you go.
And then in 2020, the population now records about around 60,000 people. But a lot of that did come from as we birthed outward as a community, and we moved to Austintown and
Right,
Liberty
exactly right.
and
Blacks-
Girard and Hubbard. And
That's
we started being able
exactly
to
right.
move, especially of African Americans. We started being able to move in the
Started
communities that we were never able to move in before. And Poland and Youngstown. So we have, a lot of people don't know, we have 11 communities that immediately border of Youngstown.
Border of Youngstown.
Northeast,
yeah.
south to west, you have 11 different communities.
Yes,
so a lot
sir.
of the population shifted.
Shifted.
It just shifted to
They
these.
left Youngstown.
Yeah, it went to Austintown, for
Yeah,
example,
exactly right,
and
exactly
Liberty, and it's areas like that, you know.
You're exactly right.
But see, Youngstown was always a centralized community
Yeah.
because of feeding off all these other communities. We were kind of like spokes on a wheel. We all in Youngstown, believe it or not, is always called the axle or the axis point,
Yeah.
if you will, and then the other communities that branch off of Youngstown, like the spokes in the wheel, I call it,
Yeah.
where we're all a big wheel, and we all feed off each other, visit each other's communities. We have relatives across, if you will, township lines and city lines here and there. You know, we're a great melting pot, a very traditional community, because a lot of us migrated here to work the steel industry. The great northern migration of people leaving out of Georgia, Mississippi, and all that. Yeah.
Tanking and
Yeah, it was going to happen. Yeah, actually,
70s.
the early demise was it was the '60s when they sold out to the Lakes Corporation.
That started that
Or
trend.
Likes. Is it pronounced Likes or Lakes?
Likes.
Likes Corporation.
Yeah.
That meant the beginning of the end, because you gave up local interests, if you will.
And the one and the thing that really tipped the scale when Sheeting Tube, when Sheeting Tube was founded here.
Right here, man. Yeah.
And when they sold out
That was
or
it, man.
brought
Kiss
in
of death.
somebody else,
Yeah, it was the kiss of death, man.
that was
Really.
the kiss of death.
It really was.
Really
It really was.
Yeah.
And Youngstown had all its eggs in one basket.
Yeah, exactly.
But
right.
proud to say here it is 2023, and we're starting to get into the tech industry and stuff like that. Youngstown's seen it as a tech hub. Now, we have a lot of different things in Youngstown compared back to our early days, where we were all things steel. We started to develop ourselves into a community, a campus community for the university town,
See, now, that
and
has
stuff
been-
like that.
That has started, that had, when your YSU started back after, let's see. Well,
it goes way
I'll
back.
just say when Trussell came.
Yeah, he did some good things for the university.
He started.
He did some very, very good things.
No,
but the
they-
university, actually, you know, they're celebrating their 115th year this year.
Yeah.
Founded in 1909. Or 1909? Yeah, 1909, and then Ken a year later. I always get those two mixed up. Started with the YMCA. It was founded in a room in the YMCA and grew into what we know now. So here it is 115 years later. So a lot of student enrollment during the 70s increased greatly at YSU because they looked at themselves as a regional university, meaning students coming over from Western Pennsylvania and stuff like that. And it actually is looked upon as an urban college these days, where we still have a lot of influx of people from all over the state of Ohio because of our tuition. Is reasonable.
Reasonable, yes.
Yeah.
And not only that.
Tressel's just exiting as the president, you know that?
Yeah, I
He
know.
came and did his tenure, 9 years, and he's moved on now.
But when he was here as the coach of the football
Oh,
team.
wow, dynamic. The 90s was
That,
on fire.
that just started things, you know what
Wow.
I mean? And then when he went down to OSU, Ohio State.
Yes, he did. Won the national championship down there as well. Definitely, I have to say this. Now, during the 70s, we're talking the 70s, we're seeing the growth of Youngstown State University. We're seeing the demise of the steel industry to some degree.
Yeah.
Of course, Black Monday was in 77.
Yeah.
And then now we have the 80s, where Youngstown was starting to, if you will, reach out to other communities and network with other communities to make it through some of our down years.
Yeah.
Now we have the medical industry here,
Yes,
as well
we
as the
do.
tech hub, tech industry, a little bit of steel, the steel left.
Yeah.
The old digs of Youngstown
Yeah,
Sheeting Tube has Valoric steel there now.
Yeah, but no steel making.
Well, they make pipes. They make steel pipes for the industry.
Well,
Valoric steel.
what do they?
They make pipes, extruded pipes.
Well, but
Roll steel,
They may make. I'm talking about raw steel. That's what I'm talking about.
Right on.
see.
Yeah, so there's some small remnants of steel production.
Yeah,
When you look at the whole valley as a whole, I'm saying we still have some here.
Yeah.
Youngstown, people don't realize that in some days, years, it was considered to be the third largest manufacturing of steel in the world.
At one time.
And in some years, the second largest producer of steel, because the way it was, I call the Big Three. We were one of the Big Three. Youngstown, city of Pittsburgh first with Andrew Carnegie's operation.
Then they went to call to
Right.
up to Cleveland, and then they went over to India. What is it?
Indiana, Gary, Indiana.
Gary, Indiana.
Yeah, USS Steel was there.
And
Had a
then
presence.
they had down in Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh yeah, the big operation down there.
Corporation down there. See, where
Yes.
they made steel.
Yes, we competed with Birmingham.
Yeah. that's
Way
what I'm
out
saying.
front was Andrew Carnegie in Pittsburgh.
There
Way
you
out
go,
front, couldn't
there
be
you
touched.
go, there
But
you
second
go,
was
there you
us
go.
or
Yeah.
Birmingham. We would battle
Yeah,
the two
we
cities
would
with
battle,
steel
see.
production. Who would put out the most steel for that
You
year?
better believe it.
Sometimes we were second,
Yeah.
and sometimes they were second.
You were exactly right.
So there was a lot of
You are
competition
exactly
going on in the
right.
steel game. Steel industry served us well into the 70s. Of course, that came to an end in a large sense. We know that nothing good lasts forever, does it, Justin? They say everything comes to an end. Everything good
Every good thing
comes to an end.
Yeah.
Now we're moving into the 90s, no, the 80s still. We're going to go to the 80s, lead the 70s. Now we're in the 80s.
Yeah.
You witnessed women come on to the Youngstown Fire Department, didn't you?
Do what?
You witnessed women come on to the
Exactly
Youngstown
right,
Fire Department.
exactly
Talk a little
right.
bit about that, Jesse.
Okay, all right. Yeah, let's see. I think it was the end of. Well, let's see. Was it the end of the 70s or what? It was toward the seemed like sort of like the end.
Jesse, we're talking about the early 80s.
Yes.
You witnessed women come on to the fire department.
Yes, yes.
Was one of the first firefighter females, if you will. Her last name was Frazier.
Yeah.
You saying?
Cheryl Frazier.
Cheryl Frazier.
Cheryl
Began the
Frazier.
era of now women
Yeah.
coming on.
She was not only the first woman, but the first African American too.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
What happened to you a couple decades earlier with now what happened to
her and
Cheryl Frazier.
Exactly right. She was the
Right.
first African American and also the first female.
Yes. Okay.
And
Double
that's what
first.
she
Double
did.
first.
Yeah, she's unpassed now, but she
Wow.
was Cheryl Frazier. And she came onto the department out of the service. She was in the
Right.
service.
Yes.
She was in the
well, there it is.
military.
Wow.
She came on the fire department.
Wow, you had an opportunity towards the end of your career to train people, didn't you, Jesse?
Oh my God! See, and it was a. Now it went pretty smooth. All because of, in my opinion, when you have one of us in the room and another one come in the room, there's a level of understanding, comfort, and so on and so forth. And those of us those are ones that was around it, they had to respect her.
Yeah, that's the way it is.
They had to respect
The
her.
ball game had changed.
Yeah.
It really has
And she
changed.
came in under the administration, the chief administration of what's the name? Chief of God, dog here, yeah. And he asked me when he was ready to appoint her. He said, "Can we do it?" I said, "Look, we got to, whether we think we can or not." And at that time, the fire department was not structured to handle females because of the living.
Yeah, the living quarters.
Yeah.
Restrooms,
And
all that stuff.
and we sat down and we said, now, we will put her in this station, or that station. There were 3 stations we could put her in.
Remember which one she went to, Jesse?
She went to number 7
Oh, okay.
on Madison and L.
Yes.
Now, why you say went up there? All because of the situation of the rooms. And we call the room up there for her, where she had privacy and restroom facilities.
Right.
You know what I mean? And from then on, then if she was to be transferred to number 1, we would take one of the chief's room and put him out there with the other fellow to leave her because he had a restroom in his room.
Wow.
Same thing up
What
at
a
number
transition.
8.
What a
Because
transition.
those stations were multiple stations. Now when I say multiple stations, you had multiple firefighters working at them, and they were separate rooms for the chiefs, separate rooms for the da-da, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And so on and so forth.
All right. So, okay, Jesse.
So we had it worked out. And then from then on, when we built a new station, we always built separate for the females.
Always, from here forward, if you
Yeah,
will.
moving
Okay,
forward.
Jesse, we're leaving the 80s. We witnessed that would be one of the most dramatic things for the
Yeah.
Youngstown fire department, if you will, seeing that happen. Now we're going on and we're leaving the decade of the 80s. What do
Yeah.
you remember in the 90s besides, of
Okay,
course, you're
now-
retiring in the 90s, but what do you remember?
In the 90s, this is when, and sometimes you have to include your negatives with your positives. And when I left in 91, retired in 91, the department, as far as the black community was concerned, or the black, I'm sorry, not the community, but the black firefighters were concerned, they kind of went in that
So losing numbers.
they brought in guys that were doing things and it wasn't right. You know what I mean? We had 2 that had to be kicked off because of drugs. And we had, now I was not in the mix then, but I was kept abreast of some of the things. Then we had, but we had several that made it up. Now, during the 80s, we had promotions. We had one black to get promoted to battalion chief.
Was that Terrence Jordan?
Terrence Jordan.
I went to school with him, that's why I knew
Terrence
that one.
Jordan. He come in with his foot in, he went to college, he went to Akron University, got his degree.
Yes, sir.
He come back, he took the exam, made battalion chief. He was very good. And he left, and he left a nice, whatchamacallit.
Yeah, he did. He ended up becoming a truck driver.
Yes, sir.
Actually, over the road home.
That is because that was his
Love, his passion.
His passion.
I know
Because I
Terrence
wanted
very
him to stay longer, see, until he could make the way for somebody else to come in, see. And
Wow.
yeah, Terrence Jordan.
Okay, there we go in the 90s. I want to cover these decades as we're concluding the interview here.
Yeah.
We've got the 90s. You witnessed even a school chum of mine being a child in 1962. He becomes battalion chief. You've seen the 80s as you cascaded to 90s, the first African American female come on.
Yeah.
And now here we are in the 90s, and here we're starting to approach, if you will, the year 2000 as we're going into another century, if you will. Well, what are some of the things, now I want to talk more about Youngstown, if you can.
All right,
what are some of the things you witnessed in 90s, in the decade of the 90s?
Starting the 90s, and leading up to around 2000, the department started to go down, all because of the population in Youngstown.
Oh, yeah.
And they had to do some shifting.
Yeah, there's a lot of people, lots of firefighters,
They
big
had
time.
to close 1 or 2 stations. One, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they were everywhere.
All right, now.
Seemed like we almost had one in every neighborhood back in the
But
day.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. All right. So consequently, that hampered the growth of the African American population as far as on the fire department somewhat. But you still had some fellows that were still focused on the job and doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So we got into the 2010 and stuff like that. And here again, I think Terrence Jordan had kind of went by the wayside, because I think he only put in maybe 30 years. He started around the 80s.
Yeah, we came out of school 81.
He came out in 81.
Then he went to college, so you get the college years there.
81,
about
91,
85, yeah.
Was, yeah, he put in maybe about 25 years. I don't think he put in the full 33.
I don't think he put in 30, no. I think he might have been frustrated about some of the politics, man. Well, we don't know.
We don't know. I don't know all the.
I know he's enjoying himself as an overall driver. I want to lead the fire department, okay?
Yeah, okay.
What was going on in the 90s in the city? Now I want you to put your city hat on now, okay?
Yeah, that's what
was going on in the city of Youngstown? Because I'm trying to get the viewers an understanding how we cascaded from the decade of the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and now here we are.
The population of the city starts to dwindle, and it sort of affected the black community too, from my perspective.
We lost those big steel jobs,
We naturally, and then also the fabricating jobs started ticking.
General Fireproofing,
commercial,
right? Commercial
they
shearing,
all shut down.
Youngstown Steel Door.
Steel Door.
Yeah, we had corporations all over the community, north, east, south, and west. We really did. And then when we go out into our sister cities,
and you go down
as well.
Some of the areas where there was businesses, they had shut down.
Everything shuttered, huh?
Yeah.
But it's good that the 90s, now with President Obama entering office and giving Youngstown a designation as one of the tech hub cities, we got a lot of money in. And I would say a pivotal part of Youngstown that we can be proud of is when the Jay Williams administration came on.
Administration came along.
Yeah, he was a part of the 2010 movement, if you will.
Yes, exactly.
To have an eye on so many years in the future, what would Youngstown look like? So to create something new.
In other words, that was sort of, in my opinion, a shot in the arm.
Yeah, the 2010 plan was a good move for us.
Yes.
Because we actually started thinking, how can we redesign the city?
Yeah.
What is the new Youngstown going to look like?
So then, we could see blacks getting into certain offices. Now, I'll tell you what I saw, and it was going back years. We here in Youngstown, but we never had a foothold in the county, into the county offices. But what had happened was, over the years, they would start hiring blacks in the administration area of the county of Mahoney. You know.
Yeah, you could say it now. We have 3 Mahoney County commissioners.
Yeah. But
you
see, but never one black though.
No. The
right.
city's got some more growth to do.
Yeah, the city.
It's hopefully not the favorite, the good old boys club or women's club, but to where the best candidate can win.
Well, now I remember the time when Attorney Nathaniel Jones come through. He was he was in the
NAACP, chairman,
in the county.
Lawyer extraordinaire.
He was hired by the county. All right.
You remember what job he held up?
It was sort of like he was a lawyer, so he was in the.
He was never the city attorney for the city,
He was in the county.
Okay.
Mahoney County,
Okay, I get you.
He was one of the first. That's why they named that.
The courthouse.
That courthouse down there.
Yeah, he was a trailblazer like yourself. Nathaniel Jones is very well documented what he did.
Went south, around Cincinnati.
There you go. Became a federal judge.
Yeah, federal judge. Yeah, see, and that was how he. But he had a stepping stone here, though. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, he actually became famous here.
Yeah,
fighting cases for the NAACP,
that's what I'm saying.
to be exact. And then from there, he would launch out onto a national audience from Cincinnati area and stuff like that. He would be appointed.
Okay,
You remember what president appointed him? Was it Reagan or Carter or Reagan?
I can't recall.
I'm thinking the Carter administration.
I can't recall. But at any rate, but then when you got into the 2010 and 2011, 2012, and 2012 my wife passed, and during that year there, of course I was starting to have some health problems, not health problems, but physical problems. I fell, I broke this leg, and I also come down with COPD and stuff like that, so I had to.
Health challenges?
Yeah, I had some health challenges, and so therefore, a lot of my attention was
Yes.
personal, you know, on my personal stuff.
Right.
And some of the things that I would have been involved in, I didn't have the time.
You didn't have time anymore.
To get
But
involved.
Jesse, I have to say, with this interview that we've had today, not only you became a trailblazer in working as a member of the Youngstown Fire Department, being the first African American firefighter, city grown, city raised, still here to 2023 to be exact. This is February 12th, 2023. I sit here and I'm interviewing Mr. Jesse Lee Carter Sr. about the passage of time and how different things have happened. He's seen a good decade or 9 decades of change in the Youngstown community, a plethora of change. And what do you see, where do you see in ending the interview, Jesse, here, where do you see Youngstown going forward? What kind of potential do you see our city having?
Well, let me put it this way here. We have to, number one, we have to do something to maybe draw some young people back into the mix here. Now, you said, how can you do that? Well, number one, you have some jobs, that's number one. But then in addition to that, you have to have it whereas if young people come here or stay here, you have to have it whereas whatever field they're in, there is a future. That's number one. See, that would be the thing you have to have a magnet to draw.
Like incentivizing,
but then you have
coming
to
back
have
home.
a thing to grow, see? All right. Now, can that be done? Well, I'm hoping it can be. We have, the administration of the city has changed a couple of times. We've had black mayors twice, you know what I mean? And this one now. Now, I feel there is something in the mix for Youngstown.
Yeah.
Now you say why? Simply because when, well, let me put it this way, when property in Youngstown started going to the land bank, okay, now who is going to manage the land bank and who is going to sell that property that went to the land bank? I think there is something afoot. I can't put my hand on it, but there is something that is whatchamacallit for Youngstown. Now, whether blacks are going to be involved in it or not, I don't know. I don't know. But I think there is something because in some neighborhoods you got whites starting to move back, not in big numbers, but you can see where the possibility is there, see. Now, what is keeping Youngstown, Youngstown? What is keeping Youngstown, Youngstown? In my opinion, Youngstown's ownership and control of the water system in this area.
That's a big asset for the city.
For the city.
Yeah, I think it's his #1 asset.
It is the #1 asset.
I think if we did not have that, as some would have liked it us to fade into the background, if you will.
This might be a ghost town.
Yeah, you would hear phraseology like that. Yeah.
See, because the suburbs, you can see how the suburbs have blossomed.
Yeah, they moved outward from Youngstown retail and left the city.
Yes.
But I do think Youngstown has a bright future, Mr. Carter,
Yes.
in that because tech jobs are settling in northeastern Ohio, and the Mahoning Valley is profiting
Yes.
with that. A lot of joint ventures with technology is coming to town, and
Yes.
more to follow. Yeah, matter of fact, Ohio as a whole has got 43 different companies that relocated from located from other states to Ohio now.
I'll be done.
So you have a lot of things going on in Ohio with the silicon chip plant down near Columbus.
Yeah.
You got things going on in Dayton. You got things going on down in Cincinnati, Columbus, of course, etc. So there's a lot of good things, and there's a lot of other people eyeballing the state of Ohio too. We just got to prepare land and stuff for them to come to the Mahoning Valley to where they can set up shop here, if you will. So I think the future's good. A lot of the old guard, I hate to say, is dying off. So new ideas are coming on board and stuff like that. And then when you look at tech, we're doing pretty good.
Well, I'll tell you what. You can look at North Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the people that have went up to Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
The only area where they're not moving out is going east toward Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
That is the east side.
Cranberry. Yeah, when you're getting towards Cranberry, Pennsylvania, western Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Even going out toward Newcastle, that has not, you know what I mean?
Yeah, one of the big assets. Yeah, one of the big assets Youngstown has is that we're centrally located. We have excellent freeways.
There's no two ways about
brought
it. Yeah.
forth by urban renewal and highways that were built during the 50s, 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of transportation hubs to get us down the road into neighboring communities. I think the future is bright for Youngstown. So we've done today with Mr. Jesse Lee Carter Sr. A perspective, if you will, about 93 years of him living, if you will, in Youngstown, born in Youngstown, grew up in Youngstown, still lives in Youngstown, if you will, just a homegrown guy, a really, really good guy. And we've got a perspective from him. You heard a little bit of me. I'm a child of 62, and he's a child of 1929. So between the both of us, we've given a perspective of where Youngstown was, where Youngstown is presently, and where Youngstown could be going forward as we continue to cascade forward in the 21st century. Mr. Jesse L. Carter Sr., I thank you for submitting to this interview.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
This is something that's been a joy of mine to sit here with you for 90 minutes that we have talked about just about everything, if you will, from labor to industry to growing up to his church, Third Baptist Church, which is located on the south side of Youngstown, Ohio. We talked about that. His serving in the diaconate service at his church as a deacon and on the deacon board. To be just a homegrown guy, and a lot of what you have done through the years, you're firmly not only planted in the city historically, but you're implanted in the city as far as working in the steel industry, which was early Youngstown, firefighting, and then presently working at your church, if you will. Mr. Carter, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming, if you will, around, and it didn't us both of us traveling together through history. So I thank you, dear again, Mr. Carter.
Well, I thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure.
I am blessed to be here with you.
Yes. Our hopes is that for future generations, I'll be able to have an opportunity to sit down and watch this recording, if you will. Mr. Carter's talked about love and marriage and military and everything in between. That the future generations will be able to see this as a record about what Youngstown was, what Youngstown is, as I say again, and where Youngstown is going forward, if you will. I'll take care, everybody. This has been a Napier Vision production in a 1962 film. So long.